Hey there, Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. Welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories. And I have a feeling we're going to be here for a little while today. We have a very special guest along, Duff Thury of Supernatural Big Baits, the big famous musky baits here in town. Also, the man behind the wrestling logo. He is the guy who hand makes more musky baits than anyone I have ever met. Colorful baits, colorful mind. Duff, great to have you here today.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Bill. That's I hope I can live up to all that, but we're just having a blast and making baits, and we love what we do. So we're off to a real good start here.
So you are the first guy I have ever met who broke away from a lucrative furniture making business to start making musky baits and decided I need to have a lucha libre or luchador, is that what they're called, as my company logo. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from, a guy in a wrestling mask?
Well, I was making baits and I didn't really have a name for them, and the name of my furniture company was Duff Thury Studio. I used to make custom furniture. So I was always comfortable having my name on it, but I needed I needed to call my lures and something, or have a company. There's Rapala when people use Rapalas, and I've got to have some kind of a iconic name, and I just wanted to have the business have a fun element into it, but something out of the context of, fishing lures or the upper Midwest, and it just, I'm not a big wrestling fan. I grew up with, all-star wrestling in Bloomington, where I grew up as a kid. We had wrestlers that lived by us. The Sod Buster lived a few blocks away from us, and he was just the neighborhood guy. He drove by his house. He was there. What he wore in the ring is what he wore in his yard when you drive by him. And Billy Graham, I think, lived at a park across the street from the park, and he had like big rope, like the ropes you have in a squared circle. As they call, he had the ropes around on the entrance of his driveway.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't know. It was just fun. We the Bashan and brothers were there, so there was a wrestling element. As a kid, when I was growing up in our neighborhood, we liked watching that. My brother was a wrestler in high school, a really good wrestler, and a violin player too. So I like that combination of the contrast of an elite wrestler and then a first chair violin player. I just thought that was just an odd combination, and I really appreciated it though too. So
I think the wrestling thing is almost a Minnesota right for some of us, right? Because we both grew up here, and those guys were larger than life. My dad, we had Thursday night tickets to the North Stars, and the guy who had the seats in front of us, the Gagnes, Greg Gagne. So as a little kid, first off, man, I'm at the Met, right? I'm watching the North Stars play. And these famous guys are sitting in front of us at the games, right? I didn't talk about the North Star game at school the next day. It was Greg Gagne and these guys who were sitting with him. Who was the, crying out loud, senior moment. Who was the announcer? The little guy. Always wore the tuxedo with the little mustache.
It wasn't Halsey Hall.
No.
The last name is Scott?
Oh, crying out loud. I'll think of it about 10 minutes from now. But, he'd be there.
He'd
that's the guy from TV. And
he would instigate all those confrontations that they had before or after a match.
Hart, that's Hart. He's sitting in front. It's just amazing to see all that stuff. Podcasts were allowed to wander a little bit. One more wrestling story for you. We were up shooting a deer camp in central Minnesota probably 15 years ago. And we're in the woods with these guys in camp, and they say, when you go through Lake George, just stop at the gift shop, which was a concrete teepee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whatever. So Sunday we're driving home, and sure enough, we drive by, and the guy who's taking the video says, we should probably stop and go in there. So we walk into this concrete teepee gift shop and hear snow globes and Paul Bunyan postcards. And sitting behind the counter, I look at this guy and go, you've got to be kidding me. Baron von Raschke.
Wow.
And sure enough, wasn't that the Claw? He and his wife run this little chintzy gift shop in the middle of nowhere.
That's funny.
So maybe someday.
I got a Baron von Raschke story, though, that my brother, the wrestler, told me. My brother wrestled for Bloomington Jefferson. And there was like I don't know what you call, like a scrimmage, and Baron von Raschke's kid, whoever he wrestled for, I don't know who the kid wrestled for, was at Jefferson, and the Baron was watching his kid wrestle and my brother. And they're wrestling, and, there's lots of activities, all kinds of little matches or scrimmages going on. All of a sudden, my brother gets up and punches the Baron's kid in the face. And the Baron runs over and grabs my brother, and he shakes him like, what'd you do that for? And he said, your son, he bit me. He goes, he bit you? And he looked over at his son, and he said, yeah, I bit him, Dad. He goes, well, that's my boy. So the Baron had to break up a scrimmage between my brother and his son. I just thought, pretty funny, and a coincidence that you have a Baron story and I got a Baron story.
But I don't think it's coincidence that that's how your company name ended up Supernatural, right? With this wrestling theme. It's just kind of fun and magical.
Right. It adds a fun part and to the business. We're very serious about what we do and what we make, but we're not and pretentious on our work environment, or we just want to make it fun and have that kind of element or an icon as a thing that we stand for. We take ourselves serious, but not too serious.
Yeah.
So.
Talking with Duff Thury, owner of Supernatural Big Baits, Musky Baits. You walk into your shop and it is that magic. I mean, you're used to it because you see it every day, but we walk in and it is color and sparkle and the smell of wood, from the saws, and it's amazing. And you do that every day. I mean, the demand for musky baits is so high these days. Specifically your baits. Why?
I'm not sure why, but we make a good product, and I put a lot of effort into just deciding where I fit in. And in this industry, I like to fish. I grew up fishing as a child, and it was kind of an important part of our family structure. Is that we get outside, we fish, we enjoy the outdoors. Treat the outdoors right, it treats you right. And I don't know, it just seemed to be that's where I might be, and eventually, I think as a high school kid, I wanted to be a forester until I found out how lonely of a job that it might be. So I thought maybe that's not the direction that I wanted to go. But I knew I wanted to kind of have the outdoors to be part of my life. And I was a furniture maker for
creative. And your mom loved art, right?
Yeah, she was really kind of the driving force of the culture part of our family, the arts, and she painted and makes pottery and, interior design. And she just had a very artistic way that rubbed off, I think, on all of us. Maybe not to the extent of me, but that the parental influence, it really struck and with me, I think so. And she recognized that I maybe could pursue something in the creative arts, and that's what I did. So.
And our dads are a little bit alike in that you can fish any way you would like as long as you're trolling.
We didn't always have a boat, but my mom let us have a boat, like a 14-foot Lund, and then we had like a 7.5 Johnson that was probably 20 years older than I was as a 7-year-old. So then it got stolen, and we bought another one, and we just kind of upgraded in every year. And my dad just really didn't like to take weeds off. And
well, that's why you were in the boat.
For the casting part, so he always wanted to fish where there wasn't any weeds. A lot of times it was, rocks or open water or just basically lakes without any weeds in them. It's where he always tried to steer us, I think. And kind of the trolling part turned into that's what fishing is trolling is fishing. We're smart enough to figure that's not everything, and you want to be a complete angler,
right.
Rivers and streams and lakes and oceans and all that. But fishing with him, it just taught me the joys of being together and catching fish and progressing as an angler, perfecting your craft. And we got really good at it, I think. We started, with walleyes. My dad kind of stopped right there. He likes to catch walleyes. And then my brother and I, we just got so good at it that we just wanted to expand our fishery to, a bigger species and something that was harder to do. And we progressed into the musky field. So,
see, I think you're a terribly sentimental guy. Think about it. Childhood curiosity of wrestling, right? Sort of becomes the name of the company. Mom loved art. You're one of the most creative guys I know. Hand painting and making these just unbelievable baits, every color in the rainbow. Dad was a diehard troller. So you invent a terribly good trolling bait, a bunch of them, and now you have this reputation around town. I mean, I first got to know of you or who you were by being at the Musky show and seeing this crowd, right? Your booth, there are always people just kind of huddled around, showing you pictures and telling stories. How many world records last year on your baits?
Well, I don't know about world records. We had a state record catch and release fish caught. I think it was 57 and 5/8 inches long. There was a new one last year in August. I think it was caught or is either caught. Yeah, I think it was caught in August from Lake Vermilion. The guy was fishing by himself and he casted and he caught this, 56 and a half or something long, or 56 and 3/4. I can't remember, but he's the only guy in the boat. But the woman that caught the 57 and change one was on Mille Lacs. Her first time musky fishing was with her boyfriend, and then a guy that I work with, Eric Bakke, had both of them out and their friends. And the rod goes off, and the boyfriend, Chris, picks up the rod and hands it to his girlfriend, Laura, and she reels it in, and it's this great big fish, and it's the biggest catch and release fish that we know of last year. They submit all the documents for the catch and release state record fish, and it comes back. They didn't get it because Chris picked up the rod,
touched it.
He touched the rod and gave it to her, so she didn't do the whole thing, So that negated the record, and the next biggest one was this young man's. I think he was from Iowa, and got the biggest one on lake. But it still doesn't take away from, she caught a nice fish. It was her first time out, and it was just, a pretty nice thing. And not everybody, wants to record their biggest fish, or if a fish that size, they want to keep it quiet too. So it's kind of a weird deal where we make a nice bait. People love using our stuff, and the promotion from them catching fish helps sell other baits. But a lot of fishermen are pretty secretive, and they don't want you to know the lake. They don't want you to know what they caught it on.
Right.
And not that it's negative for us, but it's just that they tend to hold on to that stuff, and that a lot of that stuff doesn't get shared with the public. If there's an inner circle who that information stays with.
But to give people more perspective on what we're talking about, right? Your baits, 12 inches, 14, 16 inches, something like that, being eaten by a fish that's as long as a conference room table that weighs 50 pounds or more.
Yeah. We show people baits, or when they see them, they say, wow, that's a big bait. Do you really fish with that? Is that an ocean bait? They're confused a lot of times. They're just, they're not in the know for things that work. And there's already a bunch of great baits that are already made. I don't want to make another bait in the same category as, I want to set myself apart and the company apart. Was, these baits are good if you like fishing with this size. I saw a niche in the market that there was not a high quality, high success rate bait in this size that I make. And it's going to shock some people, and some people it's going to turn off, and they're not going to, they're just going to walk by or not even give it a chance. And because they know their body of water better than anybody, and they're not gonna try it. So, and it's rather expensive to try. What my baits start about $65, and they go up to about $300. So it's not within the normal range of what you would expect to pay for a fishing bait.
No, but people will wait in line to get them, and that's part of the reason I wanted to talk to you, because there's this interesting world you are a part of, right? Years ago, I was at Thorne Brothers, and Pat there said, "Oh, you have to have this bait. If you're going to go to that lake and try to catch a muskie, you have to have this bait." And he sold me a, whatever, $28 little custom top water bait, which he was right. I have caught so many fish on the two of those baits that I bought. I have no idea who made them. The guys at Thorne can no longer tell me where they have come from. And I always thought that was so unique. Like, this is not a bait. This is not made by my friends at Rapala, 50,000 at a time. There were just a few of these made. You sell a lot of baits, but I still look at you as being a custom kind of handmade guy. Then I run into your buddy, Joe Peterson.
Yeah.
And he's making a handful.
Mm-hmm.
So we go shoot a story on him. I need to get a couple pretty pictures of the nice baits he makes. And he says, "Well, what about this one I've got on the internet?" And I look at it and say, "Yeah, that's beautiful. We'd love to take a picture of that. I'll send it to you." The next morning he calls me, "I'm sorry, I sold that bait last night." "No problem." "Yeah, some guy paid me $1,600 for it." What? Like, this is the world you guys have created. Your baits are coveted. What? How did this happen?
Well, I think the market was there before we got there, and not that I ever tried to get into that market. I talked to a guy a few weeks ago at a Chicago Musky show, and we were just conversing about baits and where it's come from and where it's going. And he said there's basically two kinds of baits, and this is a guy, I'll share his name with you at some point here, but he's a collector, and he's probably the guy who bought Joe's True Glide for $1,600. But he said there's basically two kinds of baits in the world: the ones that you fish with and the ones that you collect.
Yeah, right.
And Joe's are the collectible ones. Yours are the fishable ones. And that was, I don't know, was that a kind of like a backhanded compliment there?
It was. And Joe's going to be so mad at you because he would argue, no, I want everyone using my baits.
Yeah, he does. He does. But I don't think he turns down, $1,600 for a bait.
No.
But he's got a pretty good business plan, and he sticks with it, and it works for him. And I've got a plan too, and that works for me. I just need to, I need the quantity to reach my goal, and I don't think that he needs to sell like as many baits as I do. He does it his way, I do it my way, and we're both happy. So,
by the way, I promised I'd think of the name of the wrestling announcer.
Yeah,
Gene Okerlund.
Gene Okerlund. That's it.
Is it?
Perfect.
All right, so
Mean Gene
yep.
Okerlund, is Jesse Ventura would always say.
So I think these podcasts will have a regular moment where we have to have the record scratch sound. Time out. Engineer Brandon, in his great wisdom, said it right away. But I'm too deaf with the podcast headset on. See, we need to get you a microphone. He's like Silent Bob, right?
Oh, okay.
So yes, Mean Gene.
Mean Gene Okerlund, you got it.
Who his face still shows up on pizza ovens. Have you ever seen this? If you travel around and you go to a small time bar in, say, Iowa, the little silver pizza oven, Mean Gene's pizzas.
Wow.
So maybe he's out there listening, thinking, "Oh, I'm famous again," because I was part of the Minnesota Bound podcast. Maybe he'll send us some frozen pizzas. I'll bring them to the shop.
All right.
You are a fine furniture maker, and you transitioned to musky baits. There are a lot of people, myself included, who are so chicken in this world, so afraid to make a leap of faith, right? You work and you have something you do, and then you decide to make a change. And you did it. That's got to be scary. Did your wife just look at you and say, "Excuse me? You want to do what?"
Well, the transition was it wasn't as abrupt as you make it sound. So I was a furniture maker for 31 years, all custom stuff. Rarely worked for someone else. I took a stint as an exhibit builder for the Children's Museum. So that was like some full-time employment that I had, but I still made custom work on the sides and did furniture shows and that sort of thing. But after 31 years of being a furniture maker, my body was starting to break down. My eyesight was getting bad, and stress level was high for keeping work in the shop. And it was time for a change. And the musky lures were starting to sell well. I had a couple stores that sold them, and they were reordering on a consistent basis. And I just thought if I just put a little more time into it, instead of, at the beginning of the day and the end of the day when, I'd kind of bookend when I start my furniture making job, and so I would, I'd have to stop at 9 a.m. and then I'd work on furniture only. And then at, like 4 or 5, I could do the rest of the bait stuff to finish out my day. And it just felt like I was pinching the furniture making got less and less, and the bait making, the desire to make baits got more and more. And I had some great projects at the end of my furniture making career. I had an architectural firm who my wife works for, HGA, came to me, and they wanted me to build this lobby wall for the Department of Defense on Highway 55 and Crosstown 662. It's a white building about 6 stories tall. And they wanted me to build this entry mural. And they wanted me to bid it. And I said, well, why don't you have a big shop do this? This is a big shop kind of a job. And they said, nobody wants to touch this job. It's, for some reason, they just don't want to do it. It's either too small for them or too risky or whatever. So I looked at it and I kind of figured out how I would make it, and I presented it to them, and they, gave me a stipend for my time. And then they said, all right, we want you to bid it. And so I bid it, and I just threw a kind of a heavy number on it.
Crazy number out there, yeah.
And they said, like the bidding ends at noon, and when is your bid going in? I said, well, I'll have it in the next, half hour or so. And they called me at like 12:15 and said, yeah, you got the job. So now I had to build this thing, and it turned out just wonderful. I met some great people, and it kind of springboarded my bankroll for the lure business. I could stop. It was a nice stop for the end of my furniture making and a career, and the start of my bait making and career. We transitioned out of an old shop that our lease expired on, and we moved into a new shop, and it just felt like a great timing sort of thing where I had some money in the bank, and I could fill in some little holes that I needed for bait making stuff, and spend the time to make the parts that I need to make the business work. So
can people still see this piece of
your
they can. History?
Yeah, it's the building is open to the public. There's like a courthouse in there and a jail. You got to pass through 2 rows of security to get in there. You got to go through this. It's like the airport almost, but it's close to the airport. But I drive my van in there, and then they do this like sweep of the van. They look underneath, and you got to, why are you here? And you got to tell them why you're there. And there's like, a guardhouse there with usually 1 or 2 guys in there. And then you go through this metal detector thing, and make sure you don't have any weapons or anything that can hurt anybody on there. And then you can, why are you here again? And I just, I have a meeting or something like that. I tell them when I was working for them. But now, when I want to show friends or family the project it, and the project it's a topographical map of where the Minnesota River and the Mississippi River meet. And it was CNC cut, but it's 16 feet long and 9 feet high on 2 sides of this entrance. So it's 9 by 16 by, I don't know, it's about 6 or 8 inches deep at parts. And it's all in that with the ash made from the land that they cleared from Fort Snelling to make these parts. So it was a long process. So I just tell them, we're here to see this project. I'm showing my friends or relatives, and they have to go through all this stuff. And I tell people about it. Don't bring any pocket knife or anything. It's going to be taken away from you. So leave it in the car, leave it at home. Just don't bring it in. And the project is doing great. It looks great still. And
It's a map of one of the most iconic fishing holes in Minnesota.
Yeah, but don't tell anybody that.
It's where clear water meets dirty water, and there is a line of current, and you can see where the two rivers meet, and there are always fish there. See, we even gave people a fishing tip today.
Yep.
Well, if you are out there listening to this and you are lucky enough, by the grace of Minnesota's gods, to ever get an invite to go to Duff's shop, and he will let you in, take advantage. It's a magical place. The people working there are happy. It is one of the most visual places and an absolutely iconic Minnesota building. I won't give it away yet where that is. And the end result is more of that magic, right? The chase for Minnesota is one of Minnesota's biggest fish, muskies. And that's the life you live. And I'm enamored by it. It's a pretty special thing. You could be an accountant.
I could. I don't know if I'd survive more than an hour or two, but...
And you've got the best coffee break spot in the world. Right? Yet, right now in front of you, you have a paper cup with mass-produced coffee from the Ron Sherck Productions World Headquarters coffee pump. So when I come and you say, oh, it's time for coffee break at your place, I'm thinking, all right, where's the coffee pump? But instead, you go for a little run down the stairs.
Yeah, that's about a quarter-mile walk. I get my steps in, and there's
huge building.
There's a coffee roaster down there called True Stone Coffee, and they make coffee for restaurants and fine coffee shops, and they're gracious enough to share a cup with us free of charge. Nice folks, a nice work environment there, and they make a great product there. So
And that's the world you live in. That building used to be a cannery, right?
Right.
It's right on the, it's in St. Paul.
Right.
And it's massive. And now all these rooms and this massive old factory warehouse thing have been renovated, and there's completely new life, right? There's coffee, there are artisans, there are breweries. I mean, and that's the world you live in. Pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, we were the first tenants in a building that was almost 500,000 square feet of rentable area there, and we kind of stumbled upon it, and we're lucky enough they gave us a lease. We had a good track history though for as being tenants. You know, we're clean, we're pay our rent on time, and we're hard working, so who wouldn't want to have us and initiate like a pioneer rate for a building that you're trying to rent out. So we got a great space, and now it's just like an artist mecca type of place where there's great creativity in the whole building. Vestibule
trailers,
is there. They run a great company there. There's Can Wonderland. It's like a nightclub type of place, but pinball machines and music and poetry. They have all different creative nights for relaxation, loads of fun. So
I've got a lot of stories left to gather in that building. We'll save it for another podcast. But the first time I was in there, at the end of the day, the guy I was with said, "You want to see Frank Sinatra's train?" Same sort of deal, right? If anyone ever asks you that, you always say yes.
Yeah.
And we go downstairs and, well, what do you think we saw? I can't say it, but it's quite a story.
Yeah.
Duff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me here.
Does your production now drop by like 20% for the day since you took time off to come visit?
No, I got to make up for it. And this evening and after dinner, after the family time, I can go back to work for 3 or 4 hours. And
supernatural big baits. And probably the most important part of that, you told me it doesn't feel like a job. There are a lot of people that say that, but with you, I believe it. You said, if I'm not here in the shop, I'm missing being here and I want to go back. So congrats. That's a pretty special thing to have in your life.
Thank you.
Besides a loving wife and kids who lose stuff at the ski hills. But that's a story for another time, too.
Absolutely.
We're raising boys.
Yeah.
Duff, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
This is the Minnesota Bound podcast, the story behind the stories. And that's it for us this week. But we're back with another story next week. Until then, as we always say in the television show, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors or introduce a kid to fishing. Supernatural big baits.